Hello everyone, how are you today? Hope you are doing well. Today we are going to continue with our grammar lesson. As you remember, our grammar lesson is quoted and reported speech, and we are going to continue with part 2. Our objective today is to report questions, orders, and requests. Reporting questions, or how to report questions. In other words, how to change from quoted to reported if we have questions. First of all, we have two types of questions. We have the yes/no questions and we have the WH questions. As I said before, there are two types of questions that we can report. There are the WH questions and the yes/no questions. So, questions that have a yes/no response and the questions that begin with a question word or WH question word like what, where, who, etc. Let's start with yes or no questions. So, how to change from quoted to reported speech if we have a yes or no question. When we report a yes/no question, we use if plus the subject plus the verb. For example, do they live here? It becomes, you asked me if they lived there. So we change the verb from the simple present into the simple past, and we change the word here to there. As you can see in the reported version of the question, do is eliminated because it's no longer a question, and the verb live becomes lived. Let's continue with WH questions. For questions starting with question words or WH question words like what, where, when, who, etc., we report the question using the question word, but we change the interrogative form to the affirmative form. So it becomes question word or WH question word plus the subject plus the verb. For example, where do they live? If we want to change it to reported speech, then it becomes you asked me where they lived. So we wrote the WH, which is where, plus the subject, which is they, and then the verb is changed from present to past. It becomes lived. More examples of WH questions. Direct speech. When are you leaving? If we want to change this to reported speech, it becomes he asked me when I was leaving. So I follow the rule, which is WH question when plus the subject I plus the verb was leaving. So present progressive is changed into past progressive. Another example. How will they get here? Let's change it to reported speech. She asked me how they would get there. First of all, how plus the subject, which is they, the verb would get, so we changed will to would, and finally we changed here to there. Let's continue with reporting orders. When you give someone an order, you use the imperative form, which means using just the verb without a subject. For example, call me back later. Have a seat. Don't do that. To report an order, we use tell and the infinitive of the verb. For example, call me back later becomes you told me to call you back later. Have a seat becomes he told me to have a seat. Don't do that becomes she told us not to do that. Now, how to report requests. When you make a request, you normally use words like can, could, or will, or sometimes would. For example, could you call me back later, please? Would you open the window, please? To report a request, we use the verb to ask and the infinitive form of the verb. For example, could you call me back later, please? Becomes, you asked me to call you back later. Would you open the window, please? Becomes, he asked me to open the window. Practice. Please make 10 copies of this report. If we want to change this polite request to reported speech, it becomes, she asked me to make 10 copies of that report. Now we have an order. Go to the bank. Let's change it to reported speech. It becomes, he told me to go to the bank. The next one, he asked if I was coming to the party. We have to change it to quoted speech. And we can see that we have F plus subject plus verb. And the verb is in the past progressive. So we have to change it to its origin, which is present progressive. So it becomes, he asked, are you coming to the party? Next, did you turn off the TV? She asked. This is a yes/no question. It's in the simple past. And we know that if we want to change from quoted to reported, I need to follow the rule. So if it is simple past, it becomes past perfect. So, she asked if I had turned off the TV. So I use if because it's a yes/no question. Had turned because I have to use the past perfect in addition to the subject, which is I. Finally, she asked if I had turned off the TV. Finally, study the rules very well, memorize them, don't forget to do your homework, and have a nice day.